As somebody who is a Delmarva local, right? Somebody who grew up right outside DC, I could walk to the train station, I can get on a train, and I can be within DC in 30 minutes. Somebody whose grandfather who raised
Burns
me
is an
worked in
immoral,
DC
morally corrupt,
all of my
bankrupt
life,
man.
and somebody whose mother was an unhoused person in DC. I'm a little connected to DC. You know, you have a date night, you go to DC, you want to show somebody around the area, you inevitably at some point just take the DC Metro. That's not to say you don't show people Baltimore, you don't show people Annapolis, you don't get a Lito's Pizza or whatever, you know, show them the magic of Old Bay or whatever, but you go to DC. And so having the government just kind of step in and take control for no good discernible reason. It's not to say that crime in DC isn't an issue, but that all of the reasons put forward seem to be complete hogwash and would have all been justifiable reasons for them to do it in the first, second, third, or fourth year of Trump's presidency, considering the fact that the crime data during those first few years where he was in office, for those 4 years, I mean, the carjackings are down compared to then. The crime comparisons, you know, it's actually doing a little bit better when you talk about the 2025 numbers. If you compare the July carjacking numbers to 2 years ago, you see a decrease of like 87%. Now, that's not to say that it's like 87% across the board, but we're seeing decreases from 2023 to 2024 of 35%. Then you're going from 2024 to 2025, that's another 26%. That's not to say DC doesn't still have a crime issue, but at this moment in time, for him to choose to go in on DC crime, and not to just, hey, I'm going to give you more resources, or hey, we're going to try to do an ICE raid here, but to say, we're going to deploy National Guard troops. And not only are we going to deploy soldiers in DC for the over 800,000 people who live there and call it home, but we're also going to take control of the federal DC Police Department. Now, look, it's not that I wouldn't like to tackle more crime in DC. It's not like I wouldn't like to deal with certainly the amount of people breaking the cars, or carjackings, or the murders that do happen, because there's still over 100 murders that happen every year. It's still like down compared to what it was before, definitely to the highs of 2023. But I would still like to deal with this. But when you listen to Trump talk about it, it sounds like he's just like, he almost sounds like a bro dude podcast. Like, we need to get tough, we need to get strong. You know, what was that? What was that like rock? He released like a terrible rap song. Like, we stay hungry, we devour. The truth is ours, or something. You know, it sounds like like he's almost like hyping it up. Like, we're gonna be strong. Like, it's a buddy cop comedy, and he's not really giving strong proposals of what we're gonna do differently. Besides, you know, we're gonna be tough. And then he starts saying like, hey, there's countries that have much less budgets, much tougher police, much stronger, crime rates. So what? Just be tougher? There's not. I'm trying to figure out exactly. He goes in, he takes control, he hands over. I shit you not, the control of the DC Police Department to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who already is in over her head, who already is at the beck and call of Trump to send her on a million different legal quests, but is now going to have to manage DC crime. That's also going to be her job. Before we listen to anything Trump says on this, because we are going to watch the press conference where Trump tries to justify this, Pam Bondi is already swamped with crises after crises after crises. You want her to be asked about Jeffrey Epstein, and then after being asked about Jeffrey Epstein, when she's already sweating, you then want her to answer for DC crime statistics. I'm not like, putting aside just cause, putting aside that this is unprecedented and it doesn't really seem timed in comparison to an actual crime crisis. Put aside the fact that the crime numbers are failing. Put aside the fact, they're falling. Put aside the fact that I think there's a good chance that this is just a distraction for Jeffrey Epstein. It just seems like bad politics. It seems like he wants this to be the start of something big, as in he repeats this in other cities like Los Angeles, etc. But good luck with that. DC is a special case because it's a federal city. It is in its own state. So the state and federal divide isn't as strong. So him, quote unquote, like federalizing the DC police department has less legal barriers. So this might be an example of Trump can get away with this and he sees the mechanism to do it in front of him. And so he'd rather pull on the lever that doesn't make as much sense now just to show that he can. He sees it as a step forward. I'm trying to like rationalize this in my head. But again, like taking a step forward in a pathway he wants to try in other cities, and Jeffrey Epstein, like those are the only two rationalizations I can come up with, outside of the idea that he really thinks that if he just like tells the cops on the street, like, when you see a guy with gang colors, you walk up to him and you get him, like the only thing I really heard was something about some prosecutorial flexibility, some prosecutorial flexibility. That's the only critique I've heard surmised, but I don't exactly know if Trump taking over the DC police department, not the courts, so that's really going to do much on that front. Anyway, let's watch.
I think we need a ballroom, and that's happening. It's going to be a beautiful ballroom. This is really a lot of people, most I've ever seen in this room. And we're here for a very serious purpose, Something's out of control, but we're going to put it in control very quickly like we did on the southern border. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening, and they've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. The murder rate in Washington today is higher than that of Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, some of the places that you hear about as being immoral, the worst places on earth. Much higher. This is much higher. The number of car thefts has doubled over the past 5 years, and the number of carjackings has more than tripled. Murders in 2023 reached the highest rate probably ever. They say 25 years, but they don't know what that means because it just goes back 25 years.
The National Guard in D.C. could have used that on January 6th.
Yeah, you know what? Now, when crime's coming down, don't worry. Trump can spring into action. He can deploy the National Guard. When his supporters are storming the Capitol, he's got 5 to 6 diet Pepsis he has to drink. Diet Dr. Coke. Dr. Coke. Sorry, I'm a Dr. Pepper guy. Diet Cokes he got to drink. He's got to sit on the couch. He's got to watch it on TV. But now, no, we spring into action. To be clear, there's not going to be according to the reports, there's not going to be soldiers on the street with rifles.
Immoral, morally
the plan
corrupt,
isn't for us to defeat DC crime by just having soldiers patrol the street with rifles saying, is that a Slurpee or a gun? Bam, bam. No. These aren't soldiers that are really trained in police work, and taking people who are not trained with police work, handing them rifles after training them, how to kill, and telling them to patrol around, even if it's the National Guard. Okay, these ain't exactly like, this isn't Delta Squad. It's an example of a problem waiting to happen. Either way, man, look, if there was some recent spike in crime, but the only recent inciting incident that I can think of is that somebody who, by the name of Big Balls, who used to work at Doge. These are real words from these are real names given by, when I say real names, this is their internet moniker. But these are real words from real reports. But Mr. Balls, he got carjacked and he got beaten, and this incensed the president and angered him because, you know, violent crime is bad, and maybe that is the inciting incident. But if that's the you know, instance, if that's the response, man, like Josh Shapiro home is attacked by arsonists, and he says, well, you know what? We need to take unprecedented acts. We're going to change the state constitution when it comes to monitoring people's personal devices. We're going to, wait a second. Now that it affects you, and not even affects Trump, it affects somebody around Trump, then we get there. That's the only inciting incidents outside of distraction from Epstein and trying to take a step forward on the plan to try to do this type of thing in other cities, even though he doesn't have the same legal powers. It could be a little bit of all three that was able to reach to the top of the glass and pour over and make him do it.
Is a curd.
I gotta listen to his justification first. I gotta listen to Trump finish.
Can't be worse.
I gotta hear why DC needs to have, mind you, not soldiers on the beat, not soldiers with rifles, because soldiers are not good police officers. Soldiers are soldiers. They're good soldiers. Just like cops can be good cops, just like soldiers can be good soldiers, but they can't be something that they're not. Just like a cop can't be a social worker, you know? So if you want a soldier to be a good soldier, good job. They can't have them on the street with rifles. What are they going to have them do? I hear that they're going to put them in different cars and spots across the city to be ready at a moment's notice or to be working in logistical roles. So, okay. What does that mean? Does that mean, oh, there's a shooting on Fifth Avenue and you look out your window and then you see 10 soldiers with rifles running by to go respond? Or does that mean like mass shooter situations? Is that the type of instances that they respond to? Because they certainly aren't going to respond to every domestic dispute. I mean, the clarification of exactly how this is going to function and why exactly we think this is going to speed up the crime decrease that Trump does not acknowledge. Anytime you hear him talking about crime data in this or comparing crime data to other cities, he's using 2023 data. He's using data from 2 years ago, which has already been well over a 50% decrease from. A violent crime decrease of 35% in 2024, to 2023 to 2024, and from 2024 to 2025, it's another 26%. And in this year, it seems to be either continuing that decrease or stagnating. But for, again, the month of July, the numbers do not look like any spike that would warrant this.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs.
Or again, why Pam Bondi is the gal that'll crack the nut. She'll crack the case. She'll figure it out. She'll be able to deal with DC crime. Pam Bondi, she's a tough gal. She's been down in the gutter. She knows what she's doing.
And bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it. And just like we did on our southern border, nobody comes to our southern border anymore. 3 months in a row, we had zero. I don't know if that's right, but the people that do the work, it's a very liberal group of people.
Honestly, the only thing I could think of that the soldiers could really be there for is like during big protests, you could expect to maybe see more soldiers. Because, you know, I live in DC. I know it mostly as a DC local, but obviously it's the capital of the nation. And as the capital of the nation, that means there's going to be a lot of protests. There's going to be a lot of political activity. So you could maybe expect to see more soldiers at DC protests, but until they talk about how they're going to be doing policing, so far my image of it is more soldiers at protests, bummed out image, don't like the image. It would have been nice to see maybe during the event where some supporters were charging the Capitol, and soldiers in cars and working in logistics. That's the only, I don't see how any of this particularly is going to help bring down crime.
And they actually said zero for the last 3 months. Nobody thought a thing like that was possible. And, you know, when you take a look at numbers, I just saw some charts. These are different cities throughout the world. Red is, okay, the red is a place called Washington, D.C. Look at these. Baghdad we doubled up on Baghdad. Panama City, Brasilia, San Jose, Costa Rica, Bogota, Colombia, heavy drugs. Mexico City, I mentioned, Lima, Peru, all double and triple what they are. So do you want to live in places like that?
I have no clue. I couldn't see it. He held it up for like a second. I don't know. I doubt he's talking about 2025 numbers. Has to be the 2023 numbers, like we said before. Again, this is not an action that is something that presidents regularly do. This is something that president has never done before, taking over the DC police department. And another reason as to why DC should get statehood. DC, as not part of Maryland or Pennsylvania or Virginia, as just part of a, I don't want to say just a, but as just federal land, they can have the government come in there, get in their business, and manage a bunch of stuff. For example, there was a deal about the Washington Commanders, formerly known as the Washington Redskins, coming into DC with its own stadium. And, this is going to be like a $1.5 billion deal. This is a lot of money for DC, a lot of tax revenue. Could it fund, roads? Could it fund education? It could do all sorts of stuff. And of course, it could mean some jobs for people working at the stadium. DC locals will appreciate the jobs. Now, Trump says that the only way he'll approve that is if they change the Washington Commanders back to the Redskins. I don't care what you think about that. That's stupid. That's stupid that people's jobs depend upon the president getting to choose the name of football teams. And the only reason he can do that in DC's case is because DC isn't a state. DC doesn't have the independence that other states do from the federal government that allows them to have local authority that can be different than other states. Why in my state, marijuana is legal, but if you go down to say, Alabama, or maybe go somewhere like Texas, or you go to somewhere like Oklahoma, you're not going to be able to get, pot over the counter. It's not legal. And it's our different state dividers that give us that. But since DC's not a state, they don't get to really talk all that much to President Trump when it comes to the stadium. They don't get to talk all that much back to him when it comes to this DC Police Department decision. And that's why when you listen to the mayor of DC, Mayor Muriel Bowser, she's like really tempered down. DC is a Democrat city. And what I mean by that is it is over 90% Democrat. When you look at the last election, it was like Biden 92%, or I think this is in 2020, and last year it was Harris, I think it was 88%. Either way, like well over, like we're talking about like 9 out of 10 people in DC is a Democrat. So Republicans don't want them to be a state because that would mean 2 banked Democrat senators almost for sure. And, of course, a few more Democratic representative votes. And since Trump right now is on a campaign to gerrymander, he is on the gerrymander train, chugga chugga choo choo, saying that we deserve these seats. We deserve these seats. And you got goons like Jesse Waters on the Fox network saying that the Democrats have lost the right to be an opposition party. They have to be a minority forever. They're not allowed to become a majority anymore. So we have to gerrymander. We have to cheat. We have to steal in order to keep these elections. So now a little aggressive in the rhetoric, but this is an example as to why they don't want DC to be a state. Not only because they want DC to be able to be controlled in this way, and then the government gets to make these decisions about everything from football stadiums to policing, but also so the Republicans can deny 2 new senatorial representatives that are almost certainly going to be Democrats. So it's about stopping voting American citizens who pay taxes from getting a duly elected representative who has voting power, instead of just a representative that, I shit you not, sits in the House of Representatives and cannot vote. There's somebody in the DC it's from DC in the House of Representatives, just sits there and watches the votes and just twiddles their thumb, and they're like, here's my opinion, and that's it. They don't get the vote. They don't have a say, except for literally verbal. It's a joke. It's a joke from a nation founded on taxation without representation, and so Trump is taking advantage of that joke of a status quo. It's not like he's somebody who cares about it. So as soon as there is a legislative opportunity for it, DC needs representation. Dylan, I hope the segment's over. I ain't editing this out. Oh, yes, you are.